Prabhupada, 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 Jai Jai Prabhupada. Haribo, Haribo. Nitai Gaur Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaur Haribo. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Vancha kalpa tarubhyascha kripa sindhu vaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. So we're continuing on. We've been using Lilamrita as the timeline, and we're working with 4 other books, 4 devotee books. And we've done Mukunda Maharaj's, Guru Das's, Jamuna's, and now we're finishing up Jamuna's and on to Shama Sundar's, all around the same time period. So it's been really exciting. I've noticed a few things. There's so much similarity. There's only one difference that I found, and that's the amount of money they took between them. They all remember a little differently. But it's really interesting to compare the notes of all 4 of their biographical memoirs of serving Srila Prabhupada and how he's sending them out to London after they've just opened up the San Francisco temple and done Ratha Yatra and all of that. So we're finishing up Jamuna's and then we'll be on to Shama Sundar's. We're jumping right in where we left off. Hare Krishna. We flew to Amsterdam sometime in the last week of August, and Yamuna and Gurudas arrived by ferry from Holland to Harwich in England on August 31st, 1968. Malati and Shamasundar had previously crossed by ferry, sending money back to Gurudas and Yamuna in Holland so they could show enough money to the customs and immigration officials to convince them that they did not intend to work in England. They, in turn, sent money to Mukunda and Janaki, who then came in the same way. Now, all together in England, everything was in place for an enthusiastic Sankirtan party, members to inundate England, Europe, and the world, and with the holy names, and establish a temple in London. I've noticed, because I remember at that time, we were hearing about this World Sankirtan Party, and it was really an exciting time. We were hearing about this group of devotees that Prabhupada was assembling a World Sankirtan Party. And from Jamuna's perspective, hers is strongly on the perspective of the World Sankirtan Party. So this is from her perspective. The others didn't really mention this, but she really does, and it correlates with what I remember at that time, the World Sankirtan Party. Prabhupada was assembling, there was Tamal Krishna and what he was doing, and there was Jamuna and the Shamasundar and Malati and Mukunda and Janaki and Gurudas. So they had been tuned into a very tight-knit group of Prabhupada very carefully trained them in the kirtan, very carefully. He was correcting their pronunciations. He was training them like I was watching Daiva Shakti today, and Prabhupada would train you to do a huge amount in a very short period of time. He was so time efficient. So in the same way, in just the shortest amount of time you could be with Prabhupada, Prabhupada would get you all trained up. He would teach you everything. He would download all his entire empowerment to you. And they were understanding this. This was really quite beautiful. So, let's see. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, wait, that's not the beginning of it. who then came in the same way. Now, all together in England, everything was in place for the enthusiastic Sankirtan party members to inundate England, Europe, and the world with the holy names and establish a temple in London, something dear to the hearts of Srila Prabhupada and his guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Jamuna said, in Amsterdam, we all stayed together. We had less than $2,000 amongst us. So we went by ferry one at a time. Shamasundar and Malati were the first to access on the hovercraft. The first thing they did with a small amount of money was to buy a red pickup truck. Then they telegrammed the money back to Guru Das and me, and we went across. Then we sent the remaining money, and Janaki and Mukunda came. By that time, Shamasundar had already secured a job as a carpenter in Herne Hill, where we stayed in an attic while he fixed the flat beneath. Jamuna said, Srila Prabhupada was a supreme encourager. If I think of myself in relation to cooking, or you see yourself in relation to those that you value the most in devotional service, there are people that generously encourage you and see whatever strengths you have. So Srila Prabhupada was so brilliant at this, at understanding our minds and our needs. And when you just look at these letters and see how he wrote so much encouragement to give us some big, very big challenging things to do, and then more or less say, you can do this. He empowered them. He really gave them everything it took to all the right stuff, and just come up with it. And that was all because of Srila Prabhupada's encouragement. London, for the 40th anniversary, Mukunda Goswami later wrote about Jamuna's determination to keep these couples focused on Krishna consciousness during their difficult early months in England. And also Guru Das wrote about how the women kept them on track. If you've been following along, you'll have heard that the men credited the ladies to keep up the sadhana. They kept the sadhana going, whether they were together or they were separate. The ladies really were very integral. So Mukunda Goswami in England, when we first went over there, one of the few times that everyone would be assembled together would be at Prasadam. And at that time, she would always read. I mean, every time the devotees got together, she would read, usually from Chaitanya Charitamrita, because she knew it was just going to be Prajalpa time if we didn't read. Just see. But for whatever reason, it was a sign of her deep dedication to Krishna consciousness philosophy that she would read constantly out loud to all of us all. 35 years before, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur encouraged his London-based disciples in much the same manner, by, among other things, requesting them to be neither affected by praise nor neglect from others. We should call at the door of each and every seeker of the truth, bearing on our heads the baggage of the real truth to be offered to them. It is no business of ours to be elated or discouraged by the praise or the neglect of any person. We must be constantly alive to the duty of enhancing the pleasure of our Master by serving him with perfect sincerity. This was Saraswati Thakur addressed to the London-bound disciples in 1933. It was important to Srila Prabhupada that his young disciples in London understood something of the origins of Krishna consciousness in the West, as well as the honor and privilege he held in representing not only Srila Prabhupada, but the previous great acharyas who began the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there. Srila Prabhupada asked that the society be formally registered as soon as possible. He also wanted a beautiful and elaborate certificate of membership to be awarded to all his initiated disciples. Just see Srila Prabhupada so regal. On October 3rd, 1968, Srila Prabhupada sent Jamuna a series of drawings by Muralidhar Das of Lord Chaitanya, Radha, and Krishna and their lordships, Jagannath, Subhadra, and Balaram, and Srila Prabhupada himself. And he inscribed a small drawing of his design concept at the top of the letter. He first wrote words of praise telling Jamuna that he was encouraged by all of their activities. In this letter to Jamuna, October 3rd, 1968, Srila Prabhupada wrote, "I am in due receipt of your nice letter, November 27th, 1968. If you really just look at, imagine this is going by mail. We do text or on the internet, and you get it maybe in 5 minutes. But if you look at these dates, November 27th, 1968, from London, an international mail, and the reply is coming, okay, there's October 3rd to November 27th. It's not that long. It can take a long, long time to get mail. I remember sometimes here in India, you just didn't get it at all. And that's why Prabhupada, if you notice the way that he wrote, he'll say, "I'm in due receipt of your letter." So there's a chain. Like if you do a legal document, it's like 1 of 6 pages. You need to know the chain to see if there's a missing letter. So Prabhupada was very fastidious about saying, "I'm in due receipt of your letter based on this time," and he would reply accordingly. And this was systematic. Everything was done efficiently. Your appreciation is so nice of Srimad Bhagavad-Gita and the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, and please continue to study and preach in this way to all you meet. I'm very happy to learn that you are going to various homes and lecture halls and holding Kirtan and delivering lectures from these transcendental literatures. This is very nice, and if you continue in this way, gradually, so many people will be attracted, and our London Center will very soon be successful. I've received also your handbills, and they are also very nice. All this good news is very much encouraging to me, and I thank you, all 6 sincere souls, for carrying on this mission so enthusiastically. A letter to Jamuna, October 3rd, Srila Prabhupada then very specifically instructed Jamuna on how to prepare the certificate. The drawings for the certificate were enclosed herein, and you can place them in proper positions as they look best. These recommendations may also help you. Best use a 15 by 20 or similar proportion paper. Prabhupada was very expert at printing even, because he would lay out his back to Godheads. He knew all these technical things, so he could very specifically, and even I'd heard while walking around Mayapur and talking about building the temple, the devotees were taking very specific notes. That the proportions that he gave were divine geometry and archaeology that is found in the Vedas. So Prabhupada's attention to detail and transcendental knowledge came right down to the practical. So even he knew printing. So he's saying best use a 15 by 20 or similar proportion paper. And in that same note, Shuddhi talks about his mother. His mother was the lawyer who created the trust for Srila Prabhupada. And she said she had never had one client that knew so much about what they specifically wanted in terms of legally creating this society, International Society for Krishna Consciousness. And how Prabhupada could know so many things. But as he puts it, I know what Krishna wants me to know. So he's also an empowered personality. So for printing, they can be reduced some to about 1 inch or 2 larger than a piece of typewriting paper with whatever exact proportions are convenient to use in the reductions. Muralidhar Das has drawn these pictures, and they are very nice. In the letter to Jamuna, even though Jamuna was expert in the arts of calligraphy and graphic design, this letter illustrates how Srila Prabhupada wanted everything done to his exacting specifications. Jamuna learned this very early on in his relationship with him and endeavored with determination to perfect each service or task, whether in the fields of calligraphy, kirtan, cooking, cleaning, preaching, or anything else. On December 5th, Jamuna sent the finished certificate of membership form to Srila Prabhupada. In reply, he expressed his appreciation for her glorious sentiments. We have Narayani with us today, and she is a person who has been instrumental in creating course material. Srila Prabhupada was putting together these courses even at this time. He was putting together course material, and he was creating the titles, Bhakti Shastri, Bhakti Vaibhav, Bhakti Vedanta. He was creating the certificates, and now he's asking for a certificate to be created. So, and he's speaking about sending out the questions and the test material to his different centers for testing. So this was in the first few years of the movement. And Narayani's been involved in this for years and years and years herself, creating books and all of this. And I'm very happy that she's here. Very happy. Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. On December 5th, Jamuna sent the finished certificate of membership form to Srila Prabhupada, and in reply, he expressed his appreciation of her glorious sentiments, encouraged all the London devotees in their progress and devotional service, and pronounced the complete certificates very beautiful and nicely done. I thank you so much for your letter of November 30th, 1968, and the glorious sentiments you have expressed therein. I am so glad to read that you are doing very well and keeping always engaged. This is the key to elevating in Krishna consciousness, that we always keep our thoughts, our words, and our actions centered around the life and soul, this being Krishna. If we remember to practice this process, then automatically all distress and botherations will become nil. Woo! So I am very encouraged that all of you are progressing in learning this technique. So far as the certificates are concerned, they're very beautiful and nicely done. Letter to Jamuna, November 9th, 1968. Kirtan is the universal principle. Jamuna Devi and George Harrison, Jamuna says, each one of us remembers the heart, the interlude with the Beatles. George Harrison and Apple Records differently because we each experienced it differently. My remembrances by necessity differ from those of the others because the impact of each event or each circumstance affected each of us uniquely according to our individual consciousness. Over the years, I've been asked numerous times to describe George, my perception of him and my relationship with him. And if asked to describe him in a word, I would say that he was a gentleman in the truest sense of the word. He was genuinely nice, caring with a funny, some would say zany sense of humor. Of course, because he was enormously famous, the lens of his vision was inevitably colored by that. A private man, he could not escape the trappings of fame. I respect his privacy and never trampled over him, seeking the magic touch of a connection with him. My relationship with him was based on our shared love of Kirtan, Haribo. And it was deep because of that, not anything else. I would observe him in various situations over those years, both in England, in India, and later again in England. It was always Kirtan, not conversation, which remained the glue of our friendship. At the Sydenham press conference for the Hare Krishna mantra single release, I led Kirtan. When it was over, I turned around and glanced at George, who sat silently, slightly behind me. He smiled and then, teary-eyed, silently mouthed, Hare Krishna Jamuna. It was practically our only exchange that day, but it meant more than words could say. A memorable aspect of knowing George was observing him with Prabhupada. On several occasions in England and later in India, I was present at their meeting. Their conversations were friendly, stimulating, and frank. Both smiled frequently and genuinely. George exhibited all honest humility in Prabhupada's presence, and Prabhupada treated George with no more or no less respect than he did with everyone he met. I think George perceived that and appreciated it. After Lord Krishna's cuisine was published, we spoke as much about spiritual aspects of Krishna Prasadam and how to cook it as we had about Kirtan. George loved gardening and loved cooking, and both activities dear to my heart as well. In retrospect, it was interesting seeing the interconnecting circles of that connection, always heartfelt, always respectful, always spiritual. Come chant with us an apple a day. The 6 members of the Sankirtan party arrive in England with the notion, fully develop that, they would somehow meet the Beatles who were already interested in yoga, specifically the teachings of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. From the humble quarters, women started making distinct apple dishes, a different one each day, and delivering them to Apple Records in hopes of attracting their attention. On top would be a different eye-catching thing, a smiling picture of them all, a Jamuna calligraphied Maha Mantra with an invitation to come chant with us, or other clever adaptations. They also sent a demo of the Govindam recording they had been practicing. It worked, Jamuna said, so we sent the apple prasadam, and it went from the lower floors to the Apple studios to the upper floors, so that ultimately everyone tasted some apple prasadam. And they became a little addicted to that. So we stopped sending it, thinking it was having no effect. We were notified, where are those Hare Krishna people with the apples? They missed the prasadam. Shyamasundar was the first to meet George. They established an immediate rapport. A tall and thin man, Shyamasundar used to rock back and forth, and I remember that George also rocked back and forth like that after they met. George invited him to lunch at his home, and later Shyamasundar invited George to our Betterton street place for prasad and kirtan. When he arrived, George initially chatted with the 3 men while we women finished frying samosas and puris and making an offering. After we were introduced and had kirtan, as fate would have it, I led a short but exuberant kirtan. Then we served prasadam. The first time George spoke to me that night, he brought up kirtan as I offered him kafta seconds. He casually mentioned that he liked my voice and my kirtan mood. He also said that he had heard me chant before. Stunned, I said, I thought that quite impossible. But when I asked how and when, he chuckled and said that out on a lark one day, in disguise and incognito, he had slipped into the dark room at the arts lab. I was leading kirtan in the room, and he stayed and chanted for about a half an hour before making a sneak departure. He again mentioned my voice, saying it was mesmerizing. I laughed and said I thought I sounded like a croaking frog, but that I loved chanting. That's the beauty of it. And he said he too loved to chant. I remember thinking that this was just Krishna's magic and only Krishna's magic. Shortly after that dinner and kirtan at Betterton Street, George invited Shyamasundar and then all of us to the house at Esher. Actually, we're probably going to get an opportunity to hear from Dhananjaya too soon, and he was there with them. So that'll be very, very exciting. We're concentrating on this time period, and Dhananjaya was actually there, so you have something to look forward to with that. Their kirtan was the main event for hours. We chanted long, deep kirtans. Billy Preston played organ, George played his upright white harmonium and guitar. Mukunda played mridanga. Shyamasundar played esraj. Gurudas, Malati, Janaki, and I played kartals. We chanted, then switched instruments and chanted some more. Then we had prasad. When you chant with someone for hours, a connection is established. It happened with George that day. As the group continued their kirtans at every opportunity, Srila Prabhupada continued reinforcing their efforts by mail, calling kirtan the universal principle. It is very much encouraging to me to hear so many activities of performing kirtan there. Kirtan is the universal principle. Therefore, if you chant Hare Krishna offenselessly, that is to say, avoiding the 10 kinds of offenses, the vibration is sure to act. And when anywhere this vibration is made, it is liked because it is done on the spiritual platform. And on that spiritual platform, there will be certain agreement, so long as one is on the material platform, there is no agreement. But our movement is directly taken to the spiritual platform, so do it nicely, offenselessly, and it will be successful anywhere. This is a letter to Guru Das, December 14th, 1968. Jamuna said, musically, we were becoming a tight little group. Mukunda was our main arranger, and with so much practice, the mercy of the Maha Mantra itself, we were becoming more and more confident that at least in that way, the way of kirtan, we were serving Srila Prabhupada to the best of our ability. Sometimes we would have kirtan set at George's house, and they were magical, several hours long and very intense, followed by prasadam feasts. In the meantime, the society had finally become legally registered to England, and a program was arranged at Betterton Street, address just after the new year was formally launched. Just after the new year, to formally launch the Hare Krishna movement in London, invitations were sent out, elaborate prasadam was prepared and served, and when it's Jamuna cooking, takes elaborate to a whole other level. Elaborate prasadam was prepared and served, and Srila Prabhupada sent a recorded greeting in which he spoke about Krishna and Lord Chaitanya and then concluded with this charming message. Hear the message of Krishna as it is in the Bhagavad-Gita. The consciousness is there in you. Cleanse it of all dirty things. Make it clear, Krishna conscious, in this pleasant method by chanting the glorified names of God. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. See, that's it right there. It's like as soon as we chant Hare Krishna, it's like, wow, it's everything. The first major countrywide exposure to the devotees in England occurred through an article in the Sunday Times written by Atticus, a popular columnist of the day, accompanied by a picture of a smiling group of devotees along with baby Saraswati. The largely favorable article introduced the shaven-headed Hare Krishna devotees by referring to them as very gentle people, a bit unworldly, but not at all ingenuous. What's likely to earn them a public is their chanting. In Shyamasundars, he points out a lot of the differences in the way English is used in England and English is used in the United States. And there are some ways that like to say to earn them a public is their chanting. His prediction would not have been more accurate. Jamuna sent the article and picture to Srila Prabhupada, who was undoubtedly pleased by it. Seen in the light of whatever nebulous outcome of his godbrother's attempts to establish a footing in England, the sincere efforts of his own young disciples and the results they produced must have given him great happiness. This picture is undoubtedly very unique because Perhaps in the history of the world, it is the first time that Western boys and girls in the dress of pure Vaishnavas are chanting on the streets of a very important quarter in the greatest city of the world, London. And so by the grace of Krishna, there are 6 together doing very nice Krishna-conscious activities, and I am so pleased. I've received a report from Mr. Parikh and others that they are enamored by your behavior, your character, your devotion. In the newspaper cuttings, also, they gave such hints. In other words, everyone is appreciating your presentation. Please keep up the standard of behavior. Do not make any artificial discrepancies amongst yourself, because you are acting on a very responsible business. A letter to Guru Das and Jamuna, January 21st, 1969. Srila Prabhupada also alluded in the letters to some of the difficulties. 6. Srila Prabhupada also alluded in the letter to some of the differences that had arisen amongst the London devotees and reminded them in his gentle way to keep focused on the goal and not let anything disturb that. It would be natural to assume that within the tumult of their lives, with little money and no real housing, differences would ensue. Yeah, I mean, generally speaking, when you have discord, there's something like we're shorter tempered when things are harder. You know, when we're, I know when somebody got really angry at me, I knew they weren't feeling well. And, you know, so you can understand that when you have no place to stay and, you know, things are so iffy, they were doing severe austerities. Even the place when they were living at Betterton had no hot water. It was cold. England gets very, very cold. So, you know, you can imagine probably having to boil water just to keep the baby clean. You know, there could be some sparks flying. That would be natural. So these letters of encouragement, along with the promises of his imminent arrival there, enlivened and surcharged them. They were also enthused by the obvious impact that they were having with their kirtans, as well as their new relationship with George Harrison and the Beatles, and the exposure that recording with them would bring to the Sankirtan movement. Srila Prabhupada's letter to Guru Das, February 5th. Srila Prabhupada's letter, February 5th, 1969, said, I thank you very much for your assurance that I will find London a most flourishing center for our world Sankirtan movement. That is my ideal life, to form a nice group of devotees to perform Sankirtan and to distribute our books in wider circles. Here, Tamal Krishna's group has proved a very nice Sankirtan party, and we can combine with your group, which is also a very nice Sankirtan party. Then we could immediately take the responsibility of a round-the-world trip, and I'm sure it will be successful. You can let me know by return mail if my service in London, my London services in London are immediately required. I am prepared to go. And that's the end of the letter. Janaki had again written to Srila Prabhupada in January expressing her discouragement due to their financial hardships and that she perceived as inequities amongst themselves. She felt it was making her unstable. Srila Prabhupada wrote an extraordinary reply, again reminding them of the great mission that they were on and the responsibility that it entailed. In their sisterly relationship, Jamuna often tried to encourage Janaki by making her laugh at their impossible situation. Once she said, Janaki, you know how the Beatles made their song Magical Mystery Tour? Well, that's us. We're on a magical mystery tour, and Janaki would again find humor in there and amid their difficulties. Regarding your unstable condition of mind, I beg to request you to always remember that you have all gone to London with a great mission and responsibility. This is a letter to Janaki, January 18th, 1969. I am so pleased with you all, 6 boys and girls who are doing so much for my missionary work. My Guru Maharaj, Bhaktisiddhanta Thakur, Lord Chaitanya, and at the end Lord Krishna himself are all surely very much pleased for your noble activities. You have already made the city of London feel something about the Hare Krishna movement. It is a great credit to you all, and I appreciate appreciate it very much. Please do your duty combinedly without any disruption of peaceful attitude amongst yourselves. We're pushing our movement on the background of a peaceful atmosphere in the world. And if you show a little disturbance in our own camp, that would not be a very good example. Therefore, everyone should be forbearing, tolerant, and cooperative. That is my special request to you all. January 18th, 1969, letter to Janaki. You are doing very nicely, more than having a temple. Over the next months, despite the highs of periodic kirtans with George Harrison and others, new members joining their ranks, continued recognition and Harinam Sankirtan, Jamuna's health had begun to deteriorate under the austere living conditions. After 4 months, they were asked to leave Betterton Street and were again forced to find separate living accommodations. Despite Mukunda and the men diligently working to arrange a permanent temple, it had not yet transpired, despite the willingness of George Harrison to guarantee a loan to buy or rent a building. This was especially disheartening because Mukunda and Guru Das had written Srila Prabhupada in January that Mr. George Harrison is arranging for a first-class temple, better than the one we had on Baker Street. In the midst of this, Srila Prabhupada wrote requesting the devotees to distribute Back to Godhead magazine for 50 cents each and contribute a sum to his book trust, a seemingly impossibility for the cash-starved devotees. Yet by asking as an affectionate father asked his child, Srila Prabhupada nonetheless charmed and motivated them. And here's the letter to Mukunda, February 20th, 1969. I'm just claiming this contribution as your pet child. My father was very much affectionate in my childhood. Whatever I wanted from my father, he would at once give it. One time he purchased me one rifle, and so after taking it, I demanded that I must have another. My father denied, "You already have one. Why do you ask me for another?" So my argument was that I must have 2 rifles, one for each hand. Due to my obstinacy, my father finally agreed. Later on, when I was young and lost my father, I was very much sorry to have lost such an affectionate father. But by Krishna's grace, I have now many American fathers and mothers to help me by this contribution. Please let me know if you will do this. I am awaiting your early reply. Letter to Mukunda, February 20th, 1969. When Srila Prabhupada found out about Jamuna's health problems, he wrote to her, "I'm in due receipt of your nice letter and am both happy and unhappy on reading it. I'm happy to hear from you, but I'm unhappy because I hear for the last 3 months you are not keeping good health. I do not know why you should reduce your health, but after all, this body is external. We should not be very much disturbed with it. It is advised in the Bhagavad-Gita that this bodily happiness and unhappiness are temporary, like seasonal changes. So as we are not very much disturbed, even in severe cold or scorching heat, we have to execute our daily duties. We should not be very much disturbed with bodily pains, but because we have long associated with this material body, sometimes we are afflicted. And by higher knowledge, we have to tolerate the pains, wisely thinking that these bodily pains are not mine. And I am very much happy for your nice spiritual sentiments. In London, there may be a temple or not. It does not matter. You are doing very nicely more than having a temple. If Krishna gives us a better temple, that is all right. Otherwise, your engagement in Kirtan is very, very nice. You continue this program in cooperation with your other God brothers and sisters, and Krishna will make you very happy. You 6 together are doing very nicely, that I am very much proud of you. Be blessed by Lord Chaitanya and go on like this. This is a letter to Jamuna, March 13th, 1969. And a letter to Shyamasundar, July 15th, 1968, Prabhupada writes, Dear Shyamasundar, Okay, so now we're into Shamasundar's book. We're jumping right in, and because right before he went to Montreal, they had done Ratha Yatra, so we're backtracking a little, where he'll be taking us up to where they are in London. Dear Shamasundar, please accept my blessings. I beg to acknowledge receipt of your letter with thanks dated July 8th, 1968. So again, I'm noticing this is July 15th. Okay, he's written back, and this is in the United States, so he's written back in a week, including 15th to the 8th. That means 7 days. He got the letter and he immediately sent a reply. So Prabhupada was very quick to reply to his disciples. Very, very. He communicated. He kept. Shrutakirti would say his top spinning. He was making sure that they all kept empowered, and he was like a conductor of the orchestra, keeping everybody engaged in Krishna service by empowering them in this way. And even it was difficult. They were performing severe austerities. Prabhupada's keeping them alive, very quickly replying to them and encouraging them. So you can see Prabhupada replied in 1 week. This means it must have taken days to get there. Srila Prabhupada writes, I must say that Ratha Yatra festival was so successful for your diligent labor only. If you could not have constructed such a nice Rath cart in such a short time, it would have not been possible to perform the grand festival. You have carved so many Jagannath Murtis and the cart also. So Krishna must have been very satisfied with your service. Srimad Bhagavatam says that the highest perfectional stage of everyone's talent is to justify the supreme personality of Godhead, Hare, by his craftsmanship, scientific knowledge, and philosophical research, or similar any other energy. Please continue this attitude of service, and successful life is assured for you. This was their beautiful poster, and it looks like Jamuna's calligraphy around the outskirts. There's another one that I saw on the internet where they had just handwritten it, and this was the perfected one. I've learned the description of the Ratha Yatra Cart Festival verbally from so many persons who have come to see me from San Francisco in 1968. And that was the end of the letter. In 1968, San Francisco Ratha Yatra was picked up by the wire service, and the news was spread around the world, even to India. Once, Sumitra Sakar, a correspondent for Calcutta, the Amrita Bazar Patrika, wrote an amazing story on page 3 of the July 12th edition. As I was walking with the crowd, I sang a song in chorus that I have known in my blood since my childhood. But after a while, the intense sincerity of the whole movement did not make it seem strange at all, and I forgot they were Americans. They had all become one. The hippies, the straights, the brahmacharis, the devotees, and even the dogs. For they were all bathed in his glory, in his blessings. Words failed me for some time, and my feelings were too deep and sensitive to express through words. So this was a journalist's take on joining in the Kirtan. The Ratha Yatra was a remarkable success. About 15 new devotees followed us home and moved into the temple. The baby had been born, and now it was time to get ready for London. Can you imagine? They just give birth and turn around and go on the next mission. It's quite exciting. About 15 new devotees followed us home and moved into the temple. The baby was born, and now it was time to get ready for London. Malati and I had to get our passports squared away and permission from, this is so cute, and permission from our probation officers to travel abroad. We set a departure date and bought tickets to Montreal, leaving San Francisco on August 10th, 1968. This, a little background to this was, they were serving Srila Prabhupada, and Shamsundar came in to Srila Prabhupada and said, I have to tell you, I have to go away, I have to go to jail for 2 weeks. And Prabhupada said, what? You know, and he said, yes, I was arrested for marijuana, cannabis. And Prabhupada said, really? It's illegal? And he said, yes, Srila Prabhupada, I have to go to jail. And Prabhupada said, oh, I used it as medicine in my pharmacy. So, you know, he understood. So they went away for 2 weeks, and of course they came right back and started to serve Srila Prabhupada. So now they're going on a mission from Srila Prabhupada to go to London, and he has to get his passport back from his probation officer and a letter of clearance, a clearance letter so he can travel. But just see, he's not letting anything stop him, nothing at all. And just see, you go from this life to this life, devotional life, the difference going and becoming pukka, super pukka. Why? Because of Srila Prabhupada. Because Srila Prabhupada empowered them. They could go from such a life to a life of purity, clarity, transcendence. Why? Because of the person Bhagavad. Because of the person Bhagavad. Getting the association of a pure devotee is that it can change your life, in 5 minutes. So, we set a departure date and bought tickets to Montreal, leaving San Francisco on August 10th. After a few days of instructions from the Swami, we planned to fly from Montreal to New York on August 19th. Icelandic Airway would carry us on August 27th from New York City to Luxembourg. My passport had been confiscated due to the drug bust 2 years back, and I needed to get a letter from my parole officer before the government would return it to me. Off I go down to see my parole officer in the Hall of Justice, Mr. Silva, his name is, and I exhibit my new religious zeal. He issues the required letter on August 7th. Quote, Mr. Samuel Spiersta has my permission to travel outside the continental limits of the United States while on probation with this department, end quote. I sent this letter to my lawyer in Seattle, who promised to reclaim and mail me the passport. Meanwhile, Malati got a new passport with Saraswati's name and picture on it, too, and a letter from her probation officer giving her permission to leave. A couple of weeks go by, but my passport did not come. Still, we were certain Krishna would arrange everything, so we carried on with our London preparations. I was so confident that Krishna would arrange a nice center in London that I picked out a design for the temple room from my illustrated book of Indian temples. Just see. He's already planning the temple construction. The main cave temple in Ajanta looked just right to me, and I drafted the design on a paper and sent it to the Swami. He replied, it is a Buddhist design, but it is very nice. So I went to a lumber yard down on the peninsula and bought 60 tongue and groove finished redwood planks, 8 foot long by 12 foot wide by 3/4 of an inch, and had them strapped to a pallet and shipped by sea freight to London with a hold for pickup label and notify on arrival. Care of American Express, Haymarket Street, London, WC1, England. We didn't have a lot of stuff to pack, but just see what a carpenter is sending wood across the ocean. He's already planning to build the temple, and he means business. He's even bought lumber, and he's got the design. Isn't that exciting? I mean, that is so exciting. American Express, Haymarket, London, WC, England. We didn't have a lot of stuff to pack. We had no furniture in our house, just a kitchen table. We slept on the floor. One day, some of the Grateful Dead guys came over and asked, where's the baby's bed? Later, he sent over a hand-carved redwood rocker bed as a gift for the baby. Malati bought a front pack, a papoose, some diapers, and a couple of pacifiers and a few little toys. what to do with that fabulous deity throne I'd been working on for 6 months in the garage in Ashbury. It's almost finished, but not quite. So I called Chidananda over. He's a pretty good carpenter, and I gave him detailed instructions. Glue these 5 opals in these little niches I've carved in the ebony filigree around the opening. Then clean it all up, and it's finished. So he's leaving an altar. He's carved he's made a Ratha Yatra cart. He's carved the deities, and now he's finishing up the altar before he goes. He's pretty industrious, Savite. Pretty industrious. The plan was Chidananda would ship it to London later for our new Radha Krishna temple over there, and I hate to leave this masterpiece of love, but the Swami had taught us well, remain unattached to the fruits of your labor. As managers of Peggy Apartment House, I collected the August rent from David Cocking, who lived upstairs, and noticed that he was English. I asked him if he would suggest a good bank in London, and he said yes. The Chartered Bank of London is the best, just off Piccadilly, and it's the only British bank with a branch in San Francisco. So I went down to the local branch of the Chartered. I asked him if he could suggest a good bank in London. He said, yes, the Chartered Bank of London is the best, just off Piccadilly, and it's the only British bank with a branch in San Francisco. So I went down to the local branch of the Chartered Bank of London at 46.5 California Street. It looked pretty good. It had been chartered by Queen Victoria in the 1800s, so it had an air of old wealth and competence. And we are at our 6:30 point, so Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Another exciting adventure, and we're going on. Just see these devotees are so fired up to please Prabhupada, Sir Prabhupada, being empowered by Srila Prabhupada. It's so beautiful. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare